Close your eyes for a moment. Breathe in slowly, completely, all the way down. Now, I want you to hold a question in your mind, not as a fantasy, but as a genuine inquiry. Who are you if you already hold millions in your hands? Not who would you become, not what would change. Who are you right now in this body, in this breath, if the abundance you've been reaching toward is already yours? How do you stand? How does your weight settle? What does your face feel like when it isn't carrying the particular tension of financial fear? What runs through your mind when you wake in the morning knowing, without checking, without calculating, without bracing, that abundance flows to you as naturally and reliably as water flows downhill? Stay with that for a moment. Don't rush past it. Because here is the secret I want to give you tonight. And it is simpler and more radical than anything you have been told. You must not wait for evidence before you believe. The evidence does not come first. It never has. Evidence appears only when you have first accepted the reality as your own. Wealth is not a number. It is not a threshold you cross when the account reaches a certain figure. Wealth is a state of being. It is a way of inhabiting your own life. And the moment, the precise, specific, non-negotiable moment you step fully into that state, the world bends to reflect it back to you. Not eventually, not after a suitable waiting period. It begins immediately, in the invisible, and it works its way toward the visible with the inevitability of dawn. Consider how a genuinely wealthy person moves through life. Not a person performing wealth, not someone wearing it like a costume they're not sure fits, but someone for whom abundance is simply the water they swim in. Do they worry? Do they run the silent calculations of scarcity while they're trying to hold a conversation? Do they hesitate at the threshold of possibility, wondering if they are allowed in? No. They expect. They receive. They carry a quiet, undemonstrative confidence that has nothing to prove and nothing to fear, because they know at the level of bone and blood that they are already rich, if you wish to manifest abundance. This is where it begins, not tomorrow, not when something outside you shifts and finally gives you permission. Now, in this moment, with whatever your current circumstances look like, you must assume the feeling of one who already has everything they desire. Speak from that place. Think from that place. Move through your days from that place. Stop narrating the story of struggle. Every time you say, I can't afford this, you are not describing your circumstances, you are reinforcing them. You are signing a new lease on the very reality you are trying to leave. Instead, let your words be the natural speech of someone who inhabits abundance. I am financially free. Prosperity is the ground I walk on. Everything I touch expands. Say these not as affirmations you are hoping will someday be true, but as statements about the person you have already decided to be. When you move through your day, carry yourself with the quiet assurance of someone who has already won. Not arrogance. Arrogance is what insecurity performs when it wants to look like confidence. This is something else entirely. This is the deep, still, untroubled ease of someone who has nothing to prove and nothing to fear. When you encounter a price, do not contract, do not shrink. Affirm inwardly, I can afford anything I choose. Even before the outer world has caught up, that inner posture is already doing its work. Your only task is to remain faithful to the assumption. The moment you inhabit the state of wealth, truly inhabit it, not visit it briefly and then return to the old neighborhood of your old thoughts, unseen forces begin to move on your behalf. The people, the circumstances, the opportunities that belong to that state of consciousness will begin finding their way to you. Not because you forced them, because you are now vibrating at the frequency they recognize. But you must persist. Doubt will come, it always does, and it will say in its most reasonable voice, this isn't working. Nothing has changed. You're fooling yourself. Do not believe it. Doubt is not insight. It is not realism. It is the inertia of the old state trying to pull you back. Your outer circumstances, as they currently stand, are simply a delayed reflection of past assumptions. They are not the truth about what is coming. They are evidence of where you were, not of where you are going. Hold the new assumption, nourish it, protect it, and soon, sooner than you expect, the reflection will change. You are not trying to become wealthy. You are wealthy. You are not waiting to receive, you have received. This is already done. Now go and live as though failure is not a language you speak anymore. There is a truth beneath all truths, simple enough to hold in one hand, profound enough to restructure an entire life. Your world is a mirror of your inner state. Nothing in it, not the people, not the opportunities, not the wealth or the lack, arrived from outside you. Everything you experience first existed as an assumption within you. The unseen gives birth to the seen. The invisible shapes the visible. And what you accept as true, whether you accept it consciously or in the unguarded moments of your private mind, becomes the foundation upon which every detail of your life is constructed. Look honestly at your circumstances, your finances, your relationships, the opportunities that find you and the ones that don't. All of it, every particular, every pattern, is the crystallized form of thoughts you have entertained, feelings you have nurtured, and beliefs you have accepted as simply the way things are. Most people never examine this. They move through their lives convinced that life is something happening to them, that they are passengers at the mercy of conditions they did not choose and cannot change. But this is the great deception. You are not a passenger. You have always been the one at the controls. The tragedy is simply that most people don't know it. Think about how everything in the visible world came to be. Every building ever raised, every invention ever made, every work of art that has moved someone to tears, all of it began as a thought in a human mind. The chair you're sitting in was once pure imagination. The phone in your hand, the music you love, the roads you drive, they all existed in the invisible before someone chose to make them visible. If this is the mechanism by which the external world is built, why would it be any different for the personal world you inhabit? Your circumstances do not define who you are. Who you assume yourself to be defines your circumstances. If you carry the unconscious assumption of limitation as your identity, limitation will follow you everywhere you go, disguised as bad luck, bad timing, the wrong market, the wrong connections. But the moment you shift the assumption, the moment you accept, genuinely and without contradiction, that abundance and success and joy are simply natural for you, the outer world begins its slow, then accelerating conformity. This is not wishful thinking. This is not affirmation as a form of self-soothing. This is law as impersonal and reliable as gravity. What you hold in consciousness will harden into fact. The process operates regardless of your awareness of it. You cannot stop imagining, because imagination is the substance of your being. The only question is whether you are directing it consciously or letting it run on the old program, the inherited program, the program written by other people's fears and your own past disappointments. Are you imagining worst-case scenarios? Are you rehearsing scarcity? Are you replaying the failures of the past so many times that they feel more real than any possible future? Then do not be surprised when those experiences continue to find you. To change your life, you must change your assumption about what is possible for you. Not for people in general, not theoretically. For you, specifically, completely, without the hidden asterisk of except in my case. Begin now. See yourself already possessing what you desire. Do not wait for proof. Proof follows assumption. It does not precede it. Walk as though your success is not coming, but already here. Speak as though your desires are already yours. Carry yourself with the untroubled ease of someone who already knows how the story ends. Doubt will rise. The logical mind will argue its case, pointing at the evidence on the ground. But reality does not begin in the physical world. It begins in the invisible realm of thought and assumption. The outer world is the delayed reflection of the inner state, always catching up, never leading. The seed does not show you the tree on the day you plant it, but it is already becoming the tree. Your assumption is the seed. Trust the process enough to stop digging it up every hour to check whether it's working yet. Persist. That is the discipline. Not force, not strain, persistence. Hold the assumption even when the outer world is lagging. Hold it especially then. And the moment you release the doubt and embrace fully the reality you have claimed, it will begin appearing in your life from directions you could not have predicted or engineered. There is a profound difference between wishing for something and living as though it is already yours. And the difference is everything. Wishing confirms distance. Every wish contains within it an acknowledgement of absence. I want this, which means I do not have it. And that acknowledgement of absence is itself an assumption, and assumptions manifest. But to inhabit the state of having to live from the end, to occupy the consciousness of fulfillment before the fulfillment appears in form, is to collapse the distance entirely. It is to step through the gap rather than stand at its edge, staring across it. Most people spend their lives in the stare. They wake up rehearsing what they don't have. They move through their days reinforcing the narrative of wanting, waiting, almost, but not yet. They go to sleep with the subtle ache of desire unmet. And the cycle, loyal as clockwork, continues because the cycle is not being driven by their circumstances. It is being driven by their state. But what if you stopped wishing? What if, instead, you assumed the role of one who already is what they've been trying to get? How would you think? How would you feel? How would you carry yourself through an ordinary Tuesday? Would you still dwell in doubt? Would you still narrate the story of what hasn't happened? No. You would move with the specific, undemonstrative confidence of someone who has already settled the question. Not because they're performing confidence, but because internally the matter is closed. The decision has been made. The state has been assumed. This is the key to become what you seek before it physically arrives. Not through pretense, not through the hollow performance of affirmations that carry no inner conviction. Through genuine assumption, through the real, embodied, emotionally inhabited certainty that the reality you desire is already yours in the dimension that matters most. The physical world is simply a mirror, and mirrors do not argue with what stands before them. Do not concern yourself with how it will happen. This is where the logical mind likes to insert itself, yes. But specifically, how will the money come? What are the exact steps? And in doing so, it creates the resistance that delays everything. The how is not yours to manage. The unseen intelligence that orchestrates the unfolding of all things does not need your interference. It needs your assumption. That is your contribution. That is your entire job. Consider a person who has already won what you desire. They are not sitting up at night plotting the mechanisms of their wealth. They are not anxious about the route that delivered them to abundance. They are simply living in it, enjoying it, moving through it with the ease of someone for whom it is ordinary. This is the state you must inhabit before the evidence arrives. Not after, before. Stop acting as though wealth is something you are pursuing. Embody the version of yourself who already has it. And do not just mentally gesture toward this, feel it in your body. Feel how differently you breathe. Feel how your shoulders sit differently. Feel what it is like to make a choice from a position of security rather than scarcity. The feeling is the signal. The feeling is what the universe is reading and responding to. If you can generate that feeling and sustain it, you are no longer asking. You simply are. And once you are, the world must respond accordingly. Your emotions are not passive responses to what life brings you. They are the creative force by which your life is built. At every moment, you are broadcasting a particular inner frequency, a specific emotional signature, and life responds to that frequency by delivering experiences that match it. This is the mechanism behind the mystery of why two people in identical circumstances can have utterly different outcomes. One person radiates the quiet confidence of someone who expects good things, and good things seem to flow to them with unreasonable ease. Another radiates the tight, contracted frequency of fear and lack, and life, faithful always, returns more fear and lack. Your emotions are not decorative. They are not merely how you feel about what's happening. They are the cause of what is happening. When you feel anxious about money, you are not just experiencing an emotion, you are reinforcing the assumption that money is scarce, that it might not be there, that you might not be enough. And the universe, which has no preference and no judgment, simply mirrors back the state you are broadcasting. When you feel abundant genuinely in your body, not just conceptually, you are broadcasting the frequency of someone for whom abundance is natural, and that frequency calls forth experiences that match it. Most people live entirely reactively. They let the outer world dictate their inner state. They feel secure when the bank account cooperates and anxious when it doesn't. They feel valued when someone compliments them. They feel hopeful when a good opportunity appears. They are always waiting for something external to justify a positive emotional state. But this is entirely backward. This is why they are always waiting, because they have placed the cause downstream from the effect. They are waiting for the reflection to change before they change what stands before the mirror. You must feel first. The outer world will then adjust accordingly. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning before checking anything, before looking at any number or message or obligation, and simply choosing the emotional state of someone who is deeply, completely, financially at ease. Not performing it, choosing it, deliberately, consciously, as an act of creative will. You move through the morning with a quiet confidence. You don't flinch at expenses. You don't calculate with the hunched, contracted energy of someone who is afraid there isn't enough. You inhabit the emotional frequency of sufficiency, of flow, of the quiet certainty that your needs are met and more is always moving toward you. If you could maintain that emotional state with genuine consistency, your external world would have no option but to begin reflecting it. The law is exact. It is not sometimes true. It has no exceptions. This is also why affirmations and visualizations fail for so many people, not because the practices are wrong, but because they are applied without emotion. Repeating "I am wealthy" in a flat voice, while internally feeling the familiar grip of financial fear, is not an affirmation, it is a contradiction. The words say one thing, the feeling says another. And the feeling always wins. The feeling is the actual message being sent. But if you close your eyes and actually feel the relief of financial freedom, the specific texture of not worrying, the expansiveness of being in a position to give generously, if you can find that feeling and hold it, you have done something real. You have shifted your frequency. And at that point, you are no longer hoping. You are. And the world must respond to what you are. Train yourself to feel ahead of the evidence. This is the entire practice. Do not wait for your circumstances to justify the feeling of abundance. Generate the feeling first, sustain it with your full creative commitment, and let the circumstances be built around it. One of the most reliable ways people undermine their own manifestations is by becoming obsessed with the how. The logical mind, doing what it is built to do, wants a map. It wants to know specifically, mechanically, step by step, what is the route from here to the wealth I desire. It wants to see the road before it agrees to walk it. And in that demand for a visible road, it creates the very resistance that keeps arrival perpetually somewhere ahead. When you try to control the process, when you try to engineer the path, manipulate the circumstances, force the pieces into position, you are signaling beneath all your effort that you do not truly trust your assumption, that some part of you is still not convinced, and what you do not trust you push away. The universe does not respond to micromanagement. It responds to assumption. Think of a farmer. He plants the seed and then he steps back. He does not dig the seed up every morning to check whether it has decided to grow yet. He does not stand over the soil demanding a progress report. He tends the field, he waters it, he tends the conditions, but he does not interfere with the invisible process of germination. He trusts that the seed, given proper conditions, will become what it was always meant to become. And it does. You have planted the seed of your desire in the field of imagination. Your only task now is to not dig it up, to not demand evidence before the process has completed, to tend the inner state, the assumption, the feeling, and trust that the unseen intelligence governing the process will bring it to form in ways you may not have been able to predict or plan for. Many people fail at this. They assume the new state for a few days, then begin scanning the horizon for signs. When the signs are slow to arrive, they interpret the silence as failure. They return to doubt, to the old inner conversation, to the familiar emotional weight of it's not working. And in doing so, they undo the progress they had made. They interrupt the germination. You must be different. You must be the one who planted the seed and trust the ground. Do not look for proof ahead of time. Do not demand that the invisible show itself on your timetable. Do not interfere with the process by trying to manage every detail of how your desire will arrive. Move forward with the quiet, untroubled confidence of someone who already knows the outcome because they have already settled it internally. And let the specific pathway of arrival be the universe's contribution. It will often be something more creative, more surprising, more perfectly suited to your actual life than anything you could have engineered. Perhaps a conversation will occur that opens a door you didn't know existed. Perhaps an idea will arrive in the quiet of an early morning that changes the direction of everything. Perhaps circumstances will shift in a sequence so fluid and natural that you look back and be unable to identify the single turning point because there were many, all of them arising from the single internal shift you made. That is how the law tends to work. Not in the dramatic, single event fashion the fearful mind hopes for, but in the seamless, organic, irresistible fashion of a life rearranging itself around a new state of consciousness. Release the need to manage it. Release the demand to understand it before you trust it. You do not have to see the mechanism to use it. You use gravity every day without understanding it. Trust this the same way. Your assumption is the cause. The world will produce the effect. Everything in between is not your concern. Your words are not just communication, they are construction. Every time you open your mouth or engage in the inner conversation that runs through your mind, you are not describing your reality, you are building it. Words are declarations of what you accept as true, and what you accept as true, the universe accepts as instruction. Most people speak from their current circumstances as though those circumstances were the permanent truth. I can't afford that. Money is so hard to come by. I'm always struggling. Every one of those statements is not a description of an external fact, it is a vote for the continuation of that fact. The universe, which does not evaluate or argue, simply takes the vote at face value and delivers accordingly. You may visualize wealth for 20 minutes in the morning and spend the remaining 16 waking hours narrating lack. Guess which one wins? The assumption you inhabit consistently is the one that manifests, not the one you perform briefly and well in a quiet room. Your words must align with the state you have assumed, not through lying, through choosing, through the deliberate selection of language that belongs to the inner world you have claimed. Instead of, I can't afford that, say, that's not where I'm choosing to direct my resources right now. Instead of, I'm broke, say, wealth is moving toward me through channels I haven't yet seen. Instead of narrating shortage, begin narrating flow. These are not tricks. They are not the verbal equivalent of crossing your fingers. They are the practice of speaking from the assumed state rather than the reflected one. And consistency in that practice reshapes the inner world in ways that the outer world must eventually mirror. Your body is part of this too. The way you carry yourself is a continuous physical declaration of your inner state. Hunched shoulders, a contracted posture, the specific physical signature of someone who is financially afraid, these are not just the effects of stress, they are also its perpetuation. They are the body's way of confirming and deepening the assumption of lack. How does a person of genuine wealth carry themselves? Not with the performance of importance, but with ease, with the undemonstrative physical confidence of someone who has nothing to prove and no particular reason to be tense. Stand in that body, walk in that body, not as a performance for others, but as a private, ongoing alignment of your physical presence with the inner state you have chosen to inhabit. Ask yourself regularly, not as a guilt exercise, but as a genuine calibration tool. Would someone who already has what I desire say this? Would they make this choice from this energy? Would they approach this moment from fear or from confidence? And then adjust, not all at once, not with force, but steadily in the direction of the person you have already decided to be. Every word you speak, every choice you make, every way you carry yourself through an ordinary moment, all of it is either reinforcing the old state or building the new one. There is no neutral action. There is only the direction you are choosing to move. Choose the direction of abundance, consistently, in the small moments as much as the large ones, and watch as the accumulation of those choices builds a life that is no longer the old familiar reflection, but the new one, the chosen one, the one that has been waiting for you to claim it. The greatest test of everything I've shared with you tonight is not whether you can believe it when things are moving in your favor. Anyone can maintain their assumption when the signs are good. The test, the real test, the one that determines whether you will actually receive what you've claimed, is what you do when the physical world shows no evidence of change. What you do when the doubt arrives not as a whisper but as a full argument, armed with facts, pointing at the gap between what you've assumed and what you can currently see. This is where most people turn back, not because their desire is impossible, not because the law doesn't work for them specifically, but because they waver at precisely the moment when steadfastness matters most. They interpret the silence between planting and sprouting as evidence that nothing is growing. They return to the old state, to the old inner conversation, to the old emotional weight, and in doing so, they undo what was already underway. The delay between assumption and physical manifestation is not failure. It is the natural rhythm of the process, the invisible work becoming visible, the unseen taking form. Every seed has a germination period. Every assumption has one too. The discipline is to hold the state through that period, not to abandon it because the period exists. You must be the sculptor who does not stop when the block of stone still looks like a block of stone, who does not abandon the work because the figure hasn't emerged yet, who trusts the vision they hold internally and continues removing what is not the masterpiece until the masterpiece is all that remains. The vision was always there in the stone. The work is the act of revealing it. When doubt arrives, and it will, do not treat it as a revelation. Do not receive it as insight. See it for what it is, the inertia of an old state trying to reclaim its territory. You can observe it without obeying it. You can let it pass through your awareness without giving it your allegiance, and then return calmly, without drama, to the assumption you have chosen. Affirm to yourself, with the quiet certainty of someone stating a known fact, this is already done. The world is simply catching up to the reality I have claimed. My abundance is inevitable. Faith is not seeing first and then believing. Faith is the decision to believe before seeing, and the commitment to hold that decision even when everything visible is telling you it's unreasonable. And it is exactly that unreasonable faith, that willingness to persist in the assumption against the evidence, that moves mountains. That is what every person who has ever made a genuine, dramatic life transformation had in common. Not luck, not talent, not special access to a law that operates differently for them. Persistence, the refusal to turn back, the decision that this reality is theirs and no temporary appearance has the authority to contradict it. Make that decision now. Will you allow what currently appears before you to dictate your belief, or will you persist in the unseen until it becomes seen? The universe does not deny what you persist in assuming is true. It cannot. It is law. If you refuse completely, unwaveringly refuse to entertain any reality other than the one you have claimed, then that reality must manifest. There is no alternative outcome. The law does not have exceptions. It does not make special cases. It delivers always the objectified form of the assumption most consistently held. So persist through the silence, through the doubt, through every appearance that tries to argue you out of your conviction. Because the moment you make the decision, the real, complete, no going back decision that this is already yours, the work is done. Everything that follows is simply the world catching up. Everything you seek already exists within you, not as a pleasant metaphor, as operational reality. Your imagination is the key, your assumptions are the instructions, your feelings are the signal. Your words and actions are the daily practice of alignment, and your persistence through doubt is the proof that you have genuinely claimed the state and are no longer merely visiting it. Live from the end. Feel the emotions of having now, not conditionally, not when the evidence cooperates. Make your dominant inner climate the climate of one who already inhabits the life they desire. Detach from the how, because the how is not your department. Align your speech and your posture and your choices with the state you have assumed. And when doubt comes, observe it, release it, and return to the knowing. The world is a mirror. It has no opinion. It simply reflects. And when you stand before it as someone who already possesses what they've claimed, when you walk, speak, breathe, and move with the untroubled confidence of that person, the mirror changes. It must. That is the only thing mirrors know how to do. Stand firm in your belief. Stay faithful to the vision, not because life will reward faithfulness as a character virtue, but because faithfulness to the assumption is the mechanism. It is how the invisible becomes visible. It is how the unseen takes form. It is the entire technology of manifestation, stated plainly. You are not here to hope for a better life. You are here to assume the life you desire, completely and without apology, and let reality organize itself around your conviction. It already is. This is Never Lectures. I'll see you again in the next video.